Got my Kelly Kapowski going.
I got my famous, the greatest Disney movie ever, Solo: A Star Wars Story
You
shirt
do. I
on.
see. Let me blow that up. Let me. You can walk the runway with that. There you go. Look how nice. Oh my.
Yeah. Hello, everyone.
Hello. Hello. I just watched Survivor.
Oh yeah.
The finale was tonight. The guy I originally picked to win won. Um,
Congrats.
I only get it right when it's an all-star seat, when it's returning players. And even then, I don't always get it right. But the two times I've got it right was because it was with, returning players. The first time players, I try. Sometimes I get close and never went. But I was pacing. I mean, like usually I pace during the World Series and playoffs, and sometimes football games.
Mhm.
But I had to pace during the last 15, 20 minutes of Survivor with the baby rocking her to sleep. It was good for Piper because she likes being carried and walked around. But man, that girl fought. She was a fighter. She was a fighter tonight. Her sister was out like 9:30 or so, 9:30 or so. So yeah.
There we go. Yeah.
So you have a book.
I do. I have a couple books I want to
What
talk about.
bring it. What book did you talk about? What book
So
first?
I am prepping for summer reviews right now since summer's nearly upon us. And I was going to do an October event of Stephen King reviews for the Stupid Chainsaw Productions channel.
Mhm.
But instead, I've read way too many of them to fit in October. I mean, unless I did a review every day of the month. I just finished The Talisman by Stephen King and Peter Straub, which
How
is
was that?
it was really good. It was a bit on the intense scale. There's the main character is a 12-year-old, and he is tasked with saving his mother, who's also a queen in another dimension. They called the territories, and he can flip between the two dimensions, and it's a whole um oh you forgot to introduce me. You
No,
forgot.
no, 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 no. I'm talking about that girl.
Oh, are you gonna get us banned this time? I'm always prepared for the worst when Amelia's on.
Oh,
I,
Ew, nothing
Amelia,
happened the last few times we've been on the same stream, Jeremy.
I know. I always worry though that someone's going to make up a controversy because you say a meme that doesn't mean anything, but they take it as that, but they can't handle because Amelia is Amelia to attack her, so they attack me for it.
hold on, real quick. This is Dylan.
There we go.
I'm kidding. It's
Wow,
Kelly
he
Kapowski.
looks surprising.
That was
He looks surprisingly like Lucy Lawless.
The, a young Lucy Lawless. There you go. Kelly Clarkson. Um. Anyway, it's funny. I wore this. We had an executive committee meeting. I forgot I had this on there. Like everyone kept privately pinging me, going, "Who is that on your shirt?" I was like, "Kelly Kapowski," and they're like, "I thought so. I love Saved by the Bell." I was like, "Oh, good." But anyway, you were talking about Stephen King.
I was talking about Stephen King, one of my favorite
Now,
and most hated writers at the same time.
how does this rank with all the Stephen King?
Oh, it's oof. It's not so there's like different eras of Stephen King. For this era of Stephen King, it's in the better department, but this is I gotta look up what year this came out because this, as I recall, is right before he sobered up. In 1984, so this is right around the It era where he cocaine fueled his books, and you can kind of tell he has his imagination is all over the place. Like it's just insane. Also, it's very much a Peter Straub book as well. The two of them wrote it together, which I'm not a huge fan of Peter Straub. It's not like it's bad. It's just his stuff never really strikes me as like, oh, that's really awesome.
Right.
But this was really clever. You can see the Dark Tower references in it because you're going through interdimensional jumping from one world to another, which becomes very pivotal in that series.
And just to preface, a lot of his books tie to Dark Tower, correct?
Almost all of them do.
Okay.
Actually, this ties into The Shining of all things. Um, they're actually there's like a one-off line where Jack and his mom spent some time in Sidewinder, which is not far from the Overlook Hotel, which is interesting. But this is
Jeremy, quick question from Bernardo. Have you watched any of his Nightmares and Dreamscapes series?
No, because I've never read Nightmares and Dreamscapes. So typically with Stephen King, I try to read it first before I have the movie. Because, well, Stephen King's books typically don't transfer well to film. So I like to get his vision first and then compare and contrast. I try not to judge the movies they make of his books anymore because I find that I just hate the majority of them, and that's not quite fair.
And I'm assuming this question is for you because I don't watch anime, but
not
Yeah, Jeremy's a total weeb.
I'm not even that much of a weeb. I have my handful of weeb things I like. I like my Cowboy Bebop and like my Space Dandy and Full Metal Alchemist, but that's about it.
don't know. I've heard of Cowboy Bebop. CJ keeps telling me I gotta watch Cowboy Bebop. He is all about Cowboy Bebop.
You also
when I think Cowboy Bebop, I think Bebop from Ninja Turtles wearing a cowboy hat.
Oh, that's funny.
True story. But
I've
anyway,
heard things that's what people think of as Cowboy Bebop that I won't repeat on here.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
What about you? Real quick, just to rub it in, do I like Helsing? I mean, I don't know what that is, so
I know that that's an anime, but I've never seen it.
Yeah, I've seen Vampire Hunter D.
I mean, I've seen Van
Helsing. Where his
Helsing
hand talks to him, and when he's weak, the hand eats dirt to give him life. Come on, man. I don't know. Whatever. I actually enjoyed it. But anyway, I am reading through these little mini books of Highlander. Yes, it is a different one, Jeremy, than the one I showed you this afternoon. But I finished that one. And now we're on to the next one. These are only a couple, 210, 216 pages, and it's an easy read for me. So I'm knocking one down a day. They're ups and downs, but I will be reviewing them on my podcast, Prince of the Universe, because I know everyone wants to hear what I think about them, or some people do.
Good.
When are we having a podcast where we debate the Highlander sequels?
We can debate them right now because Highlander 2 sucked, where Highlander 3 was acceptable, but not as good as the first one.
I still haven't watched 4 and 5, but yeah, I've watched 2 and 3. And
did they make a Highlander 4 and 5?
No, they didn't. They may have
4 and 5. Wait, you didn't know this? There's a 4 and 5.
No, I don't think they ever made one.
They definitely didn't make a 5.
Let's just keep it at 3.
Yeah, and they
definitely. I think here's what I ended up saying. I said what they should have done is when they considered making sequels, they should have said to themselves, "Let's see if we can get Queen to come back and do the soundtrack." And then when Queen did not do this, and then when Queen did not come back and do the soundtrack, they should have decided, I guess that means this movie wasn't meant to be.
I can argue this, why Highlander 2 does not have a Queen soundtrack. That would be Freddie Mercury's was dying of AIDS at that point and was not going to have I knew it. But Queen couldn't even tour. Like Freddie Mercury was so ill by 1990. That's when Highlander 2 came out, right?
Yes, but they should have realized they weren't destined to make that movie.
But if you want me to rank the movies, there's Highlander, then there's Highlander 3, then there's Highlander 2, and if there is a 4 and 5, it's not even on the scale.
You know,
when Highlander 2 can beat Unknown 4 and 5, that's telling you something. At least Highlander 2 says, yeah, we're just doing a renegade version. We're just doing an alternate universe. At least they had the guts to say that.
My favorite part was when Sean Connery's character comes back and then they have the bagpipes playing Amazing Grace for no reason.
Yeah, and he like walks onto the Hamlet play and then steals a prop sword that's actually a real sword.
Yeah.
That has always made me laugh because it's just so stupid.
Hey, there's no Highlander 2 novelization. I'll tell you that.
There's no Highlander novelization besides the movie novelization.
Right. Well, I kind of wish they would have done a 3, though. I think 3 would have benefited as a novel.
Yeah,
it didn't work well, as it wasn't perfect as a movie, and I think a novel would have, the right person would have made the novelization of 3 much better.
You know, I'll say this: I really like Mario Van Peebles in Highlander 3.
No, I think he's an awesome villain, and there's just a few things. I'll say the fight on Holy Ground I did not like, because why is Duncan punished? He was not trying to fight.
Yeah, I don't know why their swords didn't shatter.
Yeah.
But we got a really cool montage, which is the other best part of that movie. When he's reconstructing that sword.
Yeah. I mean, that's just, it just always bothered me that why he suffered the consequences and Mario Van Peebles did nothing. I think his sword should have shattered and he should have run. But I know why they did it, because Duncan has to go back. I mean, Connor has to go back to his roots. Yeah, okay, good job. That Rocky already did this for us. We don't need Highlander 3 to do it.
I mean, I will say Rocky 5 is worse than Highlander 3. Highlander.
Well, yeah, I'll take that. But Highlander 5 is, Rocky 5 is better than both Creed movies.
I disagree. Creed 1 is at the same tier as Rocky 5. Like they're on the same level.
Creed is a reboot of Rocky 5.
Yeah, and that
was
Rocky 5 is the worst.
A little.
Say what?
What's up?
With a little bit of volume, at least.
Okay. Rocky 5 is better than both Creeds. It's the weakest Rocky movie, but it's better than both Creeds, because when I rewatched it, I realized it was just a Creed remake.
I've never seen Creed 2.
Not worth it. Here's the thing. There's a lot of things about Creed I liked. A lot of things, but it's still inferior to the Rocky movies. And then Creed 2, which I had hopes that they would do better. They build off 1, and it seems like they took 2 steps back.
So my thing with Creed, and you'll probably agree with this, is all the best parts of Creed are the Rocky parts.
That's exactly right. And the best part of Creed 2 is the Rocky parts. And the thing is, there's less Rocky, but also second best would be the Russian, Dolph Lundgren's parts. He was great in it. My wife felt sorry for him. My wife wanted the bad guys to win because she felt sorry for Dolph Lundgren, because you haven't seen 2.
No, but I get the general principle.
Watch 2. There's some gold in there, but sadly it does not beat 1, and 1 is easy to beat, I thought. So
I love Rocky Balboa.
I love this character. Yes.
Honestly, to me, it flip-flops with it's better than the first Rocky in a lot of ways. It's sadder, which Rocky is a pretty depressing film. If you look at it,
Rocky is, but Rocky Balboa is probably my favorite of the series. It may be controversial, but I just thought Rocky Balboa was a masterpiece. I was shocked at how good that was. Mm-hmm. And one of the best speeches Rocky ever gave is probably in Creed. I mean, the whole locker scene, your future's that way. The past is here. Every one of his friends have died. He has nobody. And I was like, it's good.
I was just glad go on.
Oh, no, that he gave Spider, the guy he fought in the very first movie, he brought that actor back, gave him a job as a waiter or a busboy or something. I was like, that's nice. That's nice. I love the wink. And then Creed 2, to give it credit, it pays homage to one of the hokiest but beloved Rocky movies to me. It's Rocky 4.
Oh, of course.
Rocky 4 is over the top, 80s, we love America, we hate Russia, America good, Russia bad.
Yeah,
we had the kooky 80s robot. I mean,
it's Stallone's ego.
It's great.
It's
great for all the wrong reasons, but it's great. And yet they honor that sequel and bring it bring it, they ground it, and it's really good. It's really good.
Hey, Matt, can you highlight Christopher's comment, Chris Nelson's comment from about 5 minutes ago?
I already did.
Oh, sorry, that must have been when I was
Yeah.
walking down the hall.
It was hilarious. Here, I want to answer Rob D's question, though. Here's how I'd rank the Rambo films. I don't, because I think I watched them a long time. I think I only watched the first 3, and to be honest, I'm sorry, I didn't. I'm not into Rambo.
I will rank them then, because I'm a huge fan of both the David Morrell's novels, because that dude's a genius, and he's the only one allowed to write a Rambo book. That was part of his film deal. I mean, that's so that meant that every movie novelization for the Rambo sequels that he did, he only did 2 and 3. He wrote some of the books that were better than the films. So I rank First Blood as the best. Rambo First Blood Part 2 is what everyone thinks a Sylvester Stallone action movie is. And it's kind of the archetype of 80s action movies, along with Commando. So it gets ranked second. Then it's a toss-up between... It was originally called John Rambo. It's Rambo 4, but now it's called Rambo. The theatrical cut's called Rambo, but the director's cut's called John Rambo. It's the only one Stallone directed specifically, which is a movie about human misery. And then we have Rambo Last Blood, which is like the direct sequel to Human Misery, but also acts as like the Death Wish movie I always wanted. And then we have Rambo 3, where Rambo teams up with the Taliban to beat up the Soviet Union, which I think would age better if we didn't have the conflicts in the Middle East. I don't blame Rambo 3 for that one. But at the same time, Stallone kept rewriting the script, and then he made it into an ego project. That's like his spiritual successor to Rocky 4, Rambo 3.
Here's the deal. My dad loved Rambo, the 4th one, and he said that was better than all the movies back then. Now I don't know if he's seen Last Blood, but from what you're saying, that's going to be his new favorite.
Yeah, well, it's basically if they had made a Death Wish sequel last year, Charles Bronson was still alive to do a Death Wish sequel. This is what it would have been.
I imagine so. Last Blood.
I was howling with laughter. We talked about this on Saturday morning Samoflange. I was sitting with 2 women who were about my mother's age, and we were sitting there and we're watching as Rambo goes into a whorehouse in Mexico with a hammer and just starts beating everyone up. It's not like Stallone is playing an old man in this. It's not his ego like taking.
So he took a scene from Old Boy,
and he put it in his Rambo movie.
Which, by the way, that's the best scene in Old Boy.
Yeah, basically any movie that has someone running around with a hammer is the best scene in a movie because it's so bizarre.
I'm gonna tell you, Old Boy, you can take it or leave it, but there's one scene. It's probably on YouTube. It's one straight scene where it backs away, and all you see is a silhouette of a long hallway. And he is, with a hammer, tearing through a packed hallway full of bad guys.
And that's the same thing in this.
It's not cool. It's not flashy. It is him beating people with the hammer, and when they won't stay down, beat them with a hammer again, and biting and punching and headbutting and beating with a hammer again. It is a brutal beatdown, and it's one of the most amazing fight sequences I've ever seen.
Speaking of brutal beatdowns, guess what movie I saw earlier tonight?
What?
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh yeah, no, I was howling with laughter at the end of that too.
I was too. That was great.
You saw it. It was like a little too much for me. Like I kind of appreciated the humor, but at the same time, I'm like, this is a little too graphic.
It is at the end, but it's fun.
Death Wish 2018 is Eli Roth being told he's not allowed to be Eli Roth, which is a good thing because his movies are hot, steaming piles of feculence. But there's no like real violence in Death Wish that isn't CG. Also, can we be? Death Wish was just done to death by Death Wish 5 when 70-year-old Charles Bronson jumps off a building. Yes, he did those movies for 20 years, Matt. And in slow motion, he jumps off a roof and lands into a pile of garbage in slow motion. Like, that was the end of Death Wish. Like, and then we got this remake with Bruce Willis being Sleepy Grandpa, who somehow acts older than Charles Bronson was in those movies. Like, just like walking around with a hoodie and a Glock, just shooting people, and it's just bland. It was really bland. Also, Chicago doesn't work that way with buying guns. You can't buy guns in Chicago. It was the most unrealistic thing I've ever seen.
All right.
But Jeremy, I once read this article on Jezebel that said it's easier to buy guns than it is to do all this other list of things.
My brother has told me this, and I agree with him. Probably the most successful person in Hollywood is Sylvester Stallone. If you think about it, he has created 3 strong money-making franchises in Rocky, Rambo, and The Expendables. And no one else can claim that.
If we're talking actors, yes. If we're talking directors, George Lucas outdoes him by becoming his own system.
No, but I'm talking about creative franchises. I mean, George Lucas has Indiana Jones and Star Wars and nothing.
Well, now he has none of them.
Well, he
too soon, Jeremy. Too soon.
We're gonna get a cameo from The Train. I'm forewarning you.
That's fine. I don't mind. I can always boot you.
I will mute myself. Don't worry.
Nah, you're fine.
Yeah, so I just moved a week ago, and now the problem instead of trains for me, it's military planes.
I want to see who that young lad in the chair is behind you.
that psychotic looking picture.
Look at that guy.
Doesn't he look a little psychotic?
No.
He looks like he's plotting murder.
He looks like he's a little troublemaker.
Yeah, that's my fiance, Dave.
I love it. I knew it. That's great. I love it. That's great.
So yeah, I moved a week ago, and I actually have 3 housemates, and most of them go to bed by 10 p.m. So that's why I moved. I walked down the hall because I was in the living room. Yeah, and they're trying to sleep. When I was at my parents' house, it's like everybody goes to bed at 2 a.m. So if I was on call with you guys, it didn't matter how loud I was.
Oh, right on.
Oh, shoot. Yeah.
Matt, you're up to no good, aren't you?
Well, I'm sending you baby pictures, so.
Aww. Okay.
All right.
Have y'all tried on the Ewok costumes yet?
Well, they're too big for them, but we're still going to put them on. Well, actually, this Halloween, it depends. We're going to try it. Because I want to try it. And if not, then it would fit perfect next Halloween.
Yeah. Because like it had like almost no size options. It went from like 3 months to 24 months or something like that. It was like almost no in between options. So I'm like, yeah, better go big because then they can at least grow into them.
It was funny. I didn't know what it was. You addressed it to the girls, and so I gave it to the missus to open. And then she went, "You got these for them, didn't you?" I said, "No, I did. I don't know what they are. What are they?" She showed me. I started laughing. I said, "No, but I know who did."
Yeah, that was a perfect choice, though.
But she was convinced it was me that got it. She was laughing. So.
Yeah, like even after you told her it was me, she messaged me and was like, "Did you get the girls Ewok costumes for the birthday?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yeah."
No, Matt did. What? Why are you blaming me? So
I mean, you kind of are the leader of the Ewok cult, so it makes sense that she would assume you did that.
Yeah. I mean, I've got Matt in Ewok.
I'm the leader, or that guy is the leader. I don't know. He's kind of he's looking down on me like Batman right now.
Like a garbage.
There's a
You
novelization.
have him in a corner when he doesn't behave.
Hold on,
Is that his timeout corner?
There's a novelization for THX.
That's the first I've heard of it too. I need to track this down though.
I didn't know that.
I just found out there's a novelization for Death Wish and for Death Wish 2.
High quality autism. I like your new profile picture.
I know, it's not me anymore. It's not me at the age of 17.
I don't know. It kind of looks like you when you have an idea, or Tobey Maguire.
I mean, I've actually been told I look like Tony Maguire. Tony, I said, I
You
can't.
said Tony Maguire. That's great. You
Yeah.
do look like Tony Maguire. And when I find out who Tony Maguire is, I'm going to say, you look just like Jeremy.
That would require you getting a Facebook, though. Because I'm almost certain that's in your age.
Never mind. Never mind. Not going to happen.
you just gotta borrow Megan's phone, use her.
Yeah, do you ever check Facebook from like her account or Instagram or any social media she uses, just like using her account?
Say what?
Do you ever just like check social media like just through like Megan's accounts?
Yeah, he's not my grandfather.
No, I don't care. I don't care. Plus, I wouldn't have the time. Everyone thinks, "Oh, you'll love it." I wouldn't ever check it.
Dude, I don't hate it. I just do it to see what the movement's doing.
I have like more of an addiction problem, at least with Facebook, because I've used it for so long, and including a point in my life where I didn't actually have friends that I saw face to face. So it's kind of like an addiction that I haven't successfully kicked yet. It'd be like that sometimes, I guess.
That is great. That is great. You know, they're bringing it back. They're bringing back the show, Saved by the Bell. Unfortunately, Zach Morris, who is a namesake, his name is going to be in there. He is not in the show, but that's not because he doesn't want to be in the show. It's because he's already contracted to another show, Mix-ish, I think. And because he's he didn't know that Saved by the Bell is getting off the ground that fast. They said, "Hey, we're trying to get this started." He went, "Okay, cool. Let me know." But then he signed a deal, and then they got it going at the same time. He's like, "Oh no, guys, I can't do both." But eventually, he will join the show. It's going to be on the Peacock, the streaming NBC. They don't know if he'll get a cameo because Mixus is ABC, and a lot of times they don't want to share stars. If they're on the same channel, yes, but they don't want to share stars on different shows. So they're unsure if he can make a guest star appearance, but she will be making guest star appearances, I believe. The only two that aren't coming back is Lisa and Screech. And my wife is the bigger Saved by the Bell fan.
I've never seen a single episode of it.
I mean, that's fine. It's dated now, so you wouldn't get it. But to me, it's kind of funny. To her, she actually absolutely loves it. And we played the Saved by the Bell game, and she knows way more about Saved by the Bell than I do. I've watched them all, except for the new school ones. Would I watch them all again? Probably not, because I know they're not that good. I know they're dated.
Well, it's a sitcom, right?
Yeah.
I fundamentally hate the sitcom structure. It's because I had to write them when I took my screenwriting class. My teacher had an obsession with sitcoms. So I have written something like 5 sitcom episodes for a sitcom I came up with called Thrifty Living, based off of my work. And
that's going to be Brian Borg's job.
What?
That.
I will probably the next day after Never, I think.
Yeah, that's going to be Brian Borg.
But I would really, maybe they can just put me in charge of Legends. I'll take that.
I mean, I'd rather have you in charge of CEO of Lucasfilm than say Kristen.
I'll tell you what, if they put me in charge of the story group, I know the first thing I'm going to do, I'll get on a Twitter account and I'll say that canon doesn't matter. There's no such thing. It never existed.
Are you laughing at me? Are you laughing at Matt or the view of my armpits you just got?
No,
I didn't even pay attention. I was busy laughing at Matt.
We're laughing at a Matt.
We are.
Yes, we are. I've got tons of things to say about that. But
I was turning off a fan, but yeah.
But anyway, so yeah. If I'd like to run Legends, that'd be fun.
That would be fun.
The Legends department that is non-existent, so maybe they could give me the okay.
And get you Joe Bongiorno.
Joe would join. Rich Hanley would join. Obviously, I would love and respect both those guys.
Me, obviously.
I would, obviously.
Obviously.
I would obviously bring. Well, I might even do Ryder Wenham too, because I like Ryder.
It's not like you've written anything for the new canon.
It's not like any of them have, but I'll tell you what, I would ring up a few people from the old school: Michael Stackpole, James Luceno, Troy Denning, Kevin J. Anderson, guy like him, and Dave Wolverton, like him. Spoke to him a couple of times. Someone actually asked me in the last Q&A, underrated writer, I think, and Kathy Tyers.
Yeah.
So
Kathy Tyers,
and to be honest, I think I told you that Jennifer Robinson, who wrote a short story for Tales of Mos Eisley, it was pretty decent, and I was excited because she wrote the last Highlander book I just read and did a really good job. In fact, it's the best one so far I've read. So yeah, maybe Stover. It depends.
What about Jude Watson?
Oh, love Jude Watson. Yeah, Jude Watson's a great choice. I'd like to see what Jude Watson could do with a novel, actually. It's actually a good idea. I mean, you got Drew Karpyshyn, too, who everyone's like, well, would you let him do a Darth Zana? Heck yeah, I would. Of course I would. Great.
Old Republic again.
I like a lot of the old Bantam writers, too. I like Michael P. McDowell. I'd give Kenneth C. Flint a shot because, you know, he gave us Heart of the Jedi, and that was really nice of him. You know, there's a few West End Games writers who didn't do much. I mean, they did some short stories here and there, and I might call them up, see what they can do. You know, it wouldn't be all the big heavy hitters that Del Rey had, you know, but I would call up a few of those people and give them, especially Bantam, just to see what else they have. Because Roger,
you know who you should really bring back to write a Star Wars book? Like if you were to be put in charge of writing, you know who you really should?
Well, it could be Roger McIntyre to write a Waru sequel.
No, you need to bring our buddy Chuck Wendig. We love him. He's a genius.
I could let him do a Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah, we'll call it Tales One-Off. Tales Annual #1.
You know, Barbara Hamley is a professor at a California college. I can't remember which one, but yeah, if she wants to, bring her.
Can I make a suggestion on who not to invite?
James Luceno. This is funny. This is one of my wife's favorite authors. Not really sure, but my wife would actually read the first Star Wars book ever if Danielle Steele wrote it. She likes Danielle Steele and I think not Sue Brooks. I can't remember.
I thought you were going to say Tom Clancy.
No, it's Danielle Steele, and there's some other author that she gets a lot of. I can't remember.
Mary Higgins.
It's another woman, and I can't think of her name.
Mary Higgins Clark died a couple months ago, Jeremy.
It's Mary Higgins Clark. It's Mary Higgins Clark.
I think so.
That's who else.
My mom reading.
Bravo. It's Mary Higgins Clark. That's the other person that she reads.
I think she died.
Okay.
Yeah, she died January of this year.
Oh, that's a shame. My mom's going to be furious when she finds out. I didn't
know that. I'll have to tell my wife.
Is L. Neil Smith still alive?
Eckert's Ladder. Hey, you know what, Michael? Just tell Eckert's Ladder you know of one guy. One guy without a life. Tell Eckert's Ladder, say, did you see Matt Wilkins? Actually, he knows me. If you guys don't know, he comments every once in a while on the channel, every blue moon when he's not busy. He's been real busy, but yeah, fans can read every bit of the expanded universe. I know, not all. There's not many of us, but there's me, and there may be one or two more. Not saying I'm the only one.
Thank you, Quality Autism. I can just throw like a random question out, and it's like a 90% chance Quality Autism will look it up and answer it for me.
There you go.
No offhand. It's like the best.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, L. Neil Smith is still alive. You know, I love that Lando Calrissian trilogy. And yes, if he wants to, he gets Lando again for another trilogy, baby. I'm all for that. We gave Alan Dean Foster a second shot at the bat. I think he should get one. I mean, heck, who wouldn't give? I guarantee you, if Brian Daley was still alive or had lived another let's say 10, 15 years, he would have come back to Star Wars. Guaranteed. I have no doubt he would have written another book.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I do not think if Aaron Alston were still alive, he would have written another Star Wars book. I think he and Stackpole would have been benched.
Really?
I don't think he would have been asked back just because no bad blood. Same thing why they haven't asked L. Neil Smith back, but Alan Dean Foster got the call back. Brian Daley definitely. And in fact, I'll also even say if he lived 10 years later, he would have gotten another shot. Maybe even sooner.
You know, I could see Brian Daley writing a trilogy that focused on Millennium Falcon instead of James Luceno's novel if he had still been alive. I could see that. Not saying the Millennium Falcon is a bad novel, but like, it's absolutely not.
Rob D, if you can't find all the short stories, just remember that Yub Nub is one hungry Ewok. All right. How about Smith writing a chance? Oh, I love it. I love it. But I think Lando, father and son, need to be in that adventure too. But yes, definitely. We besides his name, and I think he gets babysat in one book or something. We don't know anything about Chance Calrissian. And when I heard there was a Chance Calrissian in the universe, I was like, why aren't we doing stories about him? He's just as important.
It's probably the same reason Ben Skywalker got passed over in the comics. It's just like an oversight for the most part.
Well, the real reason is that Dark Horse, there was a little bit of a rift between it started with Bantam, and the books and the comic books just agreed to go separate ways, and rarely did they cross over. Like comic books wanted to, and book authors were resistant of it to make these on, and really insulted comic books. And so it started this rift, and they decided they were just going to go separate ways, and very rarely did they cross over. And when they did, it was always a little too late. Hence the New Jedi Order comic book. You know, it just missed the mark because it came out too late. R.A. Salvatore, I would get. I like R.A. Salvatore.
Vector Prime's fine.
Say what?
Vector Prime's fine. Attack of the Clones is kind of meh.
Oh, here you go. And this just sealed it. L. Neil Smith. He's writing. He's coming back with me, baby. Oh, sorry. Yeah. That's funny. I didn't know that. I never knew that. I haven't read that interview. That's funny, though. To be honest, though, his books just get passed over. Brian Daley's and Alan Dean Foster's get all this praise, and rightfully so. Alan Dean Foster came out with, he started it. His book was the first outside of the movies, besides the novelization, outside the movies, novelization of Expanded Universe. Yes, bravo. And not a bad book. Not a bad book. Brian Daley wrote a phenomenal, it's in my top 10 for crying out loud of Star Wars books ever. I love Brian Daley's trilogy. I think it's so good. But guess what? L. Neil Smith wrote a I read that. I've told the story before. I read the Lando Calrissian trilogy first because I said, well, that's going to be garbage compared to Han and Luke, because I'm a Luke fan, of course. And so I read Lando and went, oh, that was good. And I read Brian Daley's Han Solo trilogy, and I said, oh my gosh, this is good. Not as good as Lando, but this is still good. And then I read Splinter of the Mind's Eye, and I was like, this is great stuff. But not as good as Brian Daley's Han Solo trilogy, and not as good as Lando. And so it turned out the first book I ever read the first trilogy I ever read was the best. And it bugs me to this very day that Lando Calrissian, the Star Cave of Thumbaka, never received a hardback printing.
It irritates me too.
And I swear I'm going to fix that one day.
I look forward to it.
Tendril was a great character too. Hold on. Here we go. Direct quote. Voofy and I didn't know that we that is harsh. That is harsh. I need to look this up. Amelia, you know Son of Luke, right?
Oh yeah, Yeah, yeah. He and I were in the same Airbnb for Star Wars
So,
Celebration last spring.
son of Luke, do me a favor and write me at contact@theexpandeduniverse.com and put a story together about that for me, please. I'm serious. I'm serious. Put a story about that. I'd love to analyze it. Show the quotes like that and analyze it and everything for me. The thing that made L. Neil Smith good,
Who was that a quote from? I missed the context.
What?
The quote that Son of Luke just sent. Who is that from? I missed the context leading up to that.
L. Neil Smith.
Okay.
But anyway, I'm serious. Write me an article. I that's great stuff to know. L. Neil Smith. The reason why his books were so smart, because you're taking Lando, a character that, hey, he's what, a fifth wheel to all the main story going on, but he's important and he's relative. And so you do this trilogy about him and you make him interesting. You give him some style. He's a rogue, he's a scoundrel, but he's more refined than Han Solo. Han Solo knows he's a dirtbag in a way, a lovable, scruffy looking scoundrel. There's nothing scruffy looking about Lando. Lando likes nice things. Lando's smoother than Han. Lando's just as witty as and smart as Han Solo, except he goes about it differently. And those books are hilarious for one ongoing gag. I can't remember if it was in the trilogy, but it's definitely in one book where Lando is in a bad situation and you don't think he's going to get out of it. The very next chapter begins with the word sabak. And it's Lando playing cards with all the people who are about to kill him in the previous chapter. And then you find out how he got out of it. And I'm like, that silver tongue gorilla. I absolutely love Lando Calrissian. Seriously, that's how I became a huge Lando Calrissian fan.
That and he has one. He and Luke are the only two who have actually anything to do in Return of the Jedi. When we get to the climax,
True. But I have always been fascinated with if it's a Lando story. Like I remember when Rich Hanley first contacted me about writing the Star Wars book, and I was like, the guy who wrote Idiot's Array just talked to me. I was like, oh my gosh. So I was like, I loved Idiot's Array. I said, oh, thank you. It was the best thing, And I mean, like I said, there's a lot. Anytime you have a Lando story, I'm absolutely fascinated with it because I love Lando's character. And to be honest, we needed more Lando. I was so upset.
I'm so glad you're going through Bantam right now because you're going through the Bantam books that gave Lando something to do.
Yeah.
Because, after a while, they leave Lando alone, especially when we hit Del Rey.
Yeah, Del Rey kind of set him on the fence, and I was not happy about that. And even the times he was in it, it was almost like the character didn't want to be in it. He kept saying, this is not me. I'm like, but I want you to be a part of this, Lando. I want you in it. And I don't know if any character, and it's up to the author if they want to bring Lando in. And I guess a lot of them are like, no, I want to write about Han. He's really cool. And Luke and blah, blah, blah. And Leia, she's really awesome. Yeah, the big three are always nice. But I think Lando deserved more love because he's just such a, like I said, he's very vastly different than any of those characters. And he's so interesting. And L. Neil Smith opened my eyes to that.
I'm trying to think of what he does, like, once we hit, like, New Jedi Order and, like, Legacy of the Force and stuff. I don't remember him in it at all.
Who would I not want that's already done so? I don't think I should say that. So, maybe
I can say who I wouldn't want to write. Who's written EU? I'll spit it right now. Karen Miller, easily the worst. One of the worst writers in general that I've ever had to read is Karen work.
I would say Karen Traviss, but she's not going to come back anyway.
No, exactly. And I'd rather have Karen Traviss than Karen Miller because Karen Traviss actually cares about the EU. Karen Miller cares about Karen Miller's story. It's like
didn't Karen Miller only write like 2 or 3?
She wrote 3
of Wars. She wrote what?
She wrote 3 of the worst EU books I've ever read.
Okay, which ones?
Wild Space, and then the Gambit duology, Stealth and Siege.
Okay, yeah, I don't know if I've actually read any of them.
Total waste. If you need something to put yourself to sleep, read Stealth and Siege. Nothing happens.
Except Ahsoka has a couple cool things she does that don't pertain anything to the plot.
Right. And what happens at the end is they took your money.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
It just stops. It just stops. Also,
Hey, Jeremy, how about you send me a bootleg of those books? No, I'm just kidding.
Star Wars
You
interviews.
don't endorse that.
Although there is a weird continuity thing that Karen Miller decided that Palpatine confronts Anakin in the beginning about being in love with Padme.
Yeah.
Which takes away from Revenge of the Sith.
Space Rasta, yes, he did. He completely, literally disappears. Yep.
Yeah, but I feel like that was relatively explained. Quality autism.
Hey.
It's like, oh shit, my son's being born. See ya.
Scott, you read my mind, brother. You read my mind.
I mean, I've stated that numerous times on my podcast. It should be banned.
Yeah.
For scoundrels.
Quality. Hey, but you know what? There's a billion people who still like Timothy Zahn. He was really strong in the tournament we had in March.
Yeah, and rightfully so. If not for anything, then that
rightfully so. He did a lot of heavy hitters, but
if we're counting new canon, his last 6 books have been unbearably awful.
Well, I'm hearing that even though his first new canon book was his best, it was a retread over everything he's done before.
Yeah, it was,
and he tweaked the Thrawn character. He even said that this is a different Thrawn than we've seen before. Yeah, this is a Thrawn that can be fooled by a couple of Rebels kids in every episode.
I'm going to blame that on Filoni, and that he was forced to tie it in, because that was the problem with his new trilogy, which number one didn't feel like a trilogy. It just felt like 3 Thrawn adventures that tied into Rebels at different points of the later 2 seasons.
Here's a theory, Rob D. Has J.K. Rowling written one book in her life? I would say no. That I have no proof, but she ghost wrote. There's a ghost writer for the Harry Potter series. There's no way, as much money. I mean, they'd back up that billion, not million. We're talking $1 billion truck if she decided to write a prequel series based on young Slytherin, young Snape, young. Henry, is it Henry? Is that Harry's father's name? What's
James.
What? James.
Lily.
Mary. Yeah, Lily. Yeah, if she'd make $1 billion. She won't do it. Why? She don't want $1 billion? No, because she didn't write it. And the guy who ghostwrote it was like, I'm not writing for you.
She will. She gets credited for helping write those Fantastic Beasts movies, and that explains a lot. Those movies are barely considered film, in my opinion.
I like Michael Stackpole. If he did, I would task him. He would probably like to do more X-Wing. He's really attached to those characters. I'd probably let him, but I would let him. Here's what I would do with Michael Stackpole. I'd say, hey, you did such a great job with X-Wing. Let's hit the reset button within Legends and do a Y-Wing series. Or an A-Wing or a B-Wing, and just do it with different characters and different. I think he'd go for that. It's something a little bit different.
I would go with the other side and do a TIE Fighter story.
Ooh, no, never mind. I'd do that. Never mind.
Or a TIE Interceptor.
TIE Fighter series.
Because
that's smart. I'd go with that. That's a smart choice.
When are the Interceptors introduced in the EU? Is there a story specifically when they show up?
I want to say, well, no, the source books.
The source books, but
the source books talk about it, the development of the Interceptor. I don't think there's a story around the Interceptor. There could be, but I just don't recall it.
Because the only spacecraft I can think of from that Rebellion era that has a story that, like, hey, this is our prototype, is in you remember when Empire Comics turned into Rebellion Comics? The arc Small Victories, when they're blowing up that fueling station.
Right.
Luke and the blonde spy that was supposed to be his love interest, but they gave up on that plot.
Gotcha.
They're rescued by a squad of B-Wings and their prototypes. It's like the only time I can remember like B-Wings being a plot of anything.
Yeah, sure. I actually would you want to consider the New Generation comic series a collection of the Legend? Well, it already is. That already is Legends. Someone asked, what about Dave Wolverton? You must have missed it, but yeah, I said Dave Wolverton too. Jeremy and I, it was Jeremy or was it Dylan?
It was I met him twice. I was with you the second time when we
Yeah.
talked to him for a great long
The
time.
man is such a professional. He's so nice with his time. He answers any questions. We actually interrupted, well, not interrupted. It was during his break. He was doing a writing
He's doing
uh,
our
workshop.
writing workshop.
Yeah, writing workshop. And so it's during his break, and we just went in there to get autographs, of course. And then I started talking to him. Now, to be honest, he could have said, "Hey guys, I'm on my break here, so if you don't mind, I'd like to get back to some things." And I'd have been like, "Sure, man." I wouldn't have hurt my feelings at all. But he took the entire break time just about with us until people started coming in. It was time to start the workshop again. And I felt bad for taking up all his time, but not once did he complain, look at his watch, say, "Hey guys, I need to get something to eat real quick." Because I would have ended the conversation immediately and walked out the door and thanked him profusely just for
I
signing.
would have bought him a sandwich. Wait,
Well-
no, that would have been sexist. I would have bought him soup.
Well, yeah. But the thing is, though, he's so generous with his time, and he's done this before because I met him again at Gen Con. And well, it was both times at Gen Con. And the first time I went by myself, and we sat on a couch and we talked for a long time. In fact, he missed the first part of a panel he was supposed to be on because he was finishing up talking to me. And then he apologized to me because I said, "Hey, Dave, you're missing your panel." He went, "Oh my goodness, I am. I'm 15 minutes late." He said, "I am so sorry. I've got to get this panel." He said, "Afterwards, I'm going to lunch with some people." And he said, "But if I can catch you again," he said, "we can finish our conversation." I said, No problem. You go ahead, sir." And I didn't catch back up, but that was just so kind of him to just sit there and just talk with me, even though they told him his panel's starting in a few minutes. He went, "Okay, I'll be there." And then he said, "Well, I'm a little late, but that's okay." And I was like, "That's so nice. Why take time out for this guy who's asking you about one book you wrote 20 years ago and you've written other stuff before, and you should be like, you don't read my other stuff, then why am I spending my time?" You're not a super fan. I'm just saying, but I really appreciate that. And he's always been that. And he is one of the kindest, and he's very smart too. Kindest and most intelligent authors, I mean that I've ever met. I have a grand respect for Dave Farland, by the way.
Really cool to talk to. It was so fun to talk to him with you, and he's signing your missions books.
Yeah.
And he was talking.
That's what got him interested. He's like, "Wow, these are in pristine condition." Of course. Who are you talking to?
He said the same thing about my Jedi Apprentice book 1.
Oh, never mind. It was about your Jedi Apprentice book covers. That's right. He didn't say that. Yeah, yours.
Because I took such good care of them because I knew they weren't going to get released in hardcover because Scholastic never did that back then. Granted, they did later because I'm looking at Boba Fett books 1 through 3 in an oversized hardcover. But like they didn't do that for Jedi Apprentice, so I took really good care of it because it was the only one of those books I was ever going to get.
I'm just going to answer this question real quick. Quality, I'd just like to see Catherine Rush. Okay, go ahead.
I don't remember now.
They should make a Catherine Rush t-shirt. I'd be wearing that.
But no, man, I wish I had gotten one out of the fire. That was because I only got one book out, and that was my Courtship of Princess Leia, which he also signed. No, those were good.
The fun thing about Catherine Christian Rush is that she was supposed to be the next in line to start writing tons of stuff. I think Bantam had big plans for her to write a lot more, like her own trilogy and stuff like that. Like I've heard she was supposed to be, carrying the ball and want to be one of the big contributors. And then, of course, they lost the rights. It reverted back to Del Rey. And those plans went hot. Now, that's the big rumor that an author had just, now not to me, but someone had brought that information to me, which would have been interesting because I thought New Rebellion was good.
Oh, she wrote New Rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I forgot. I forget that's a book a lot of the time.
You do?
I do.
Okay, well, Amelia, how are you?
I'm good. Somebody just
let me.
There's this Lord of the Rings fan site I was on for like 10 freaking years, and I liked it because it was more Tolkien driven rather than the movies, and we're probably being paid by New Line Cinema to promote the movies nonstop. The One Ring Nut. This fan site, like, it died a couple years ago, and they just like brought it back to life, and so like that's kind of been distracting me for the last hour because I'm like,
Oh
Can
my
we
goodness.
talk about how in Hobbit: The Desolation of Smaug, in the director's cut, there's a character that got like digitally painted out of the theatrical version? Have you not seen the director's cut of Hobbit: The Desolation of
Why
Smaug?
would I do that to myself, Jeremy? I'm not a masochist, unlike you.
3-hour movie made it 3.5 hours. So let me explain this because it's the funniest thing I've ever seen, like in a blockbuster film, because it's so awful. And this is coming from a same movie where they put a GoPro on a barrel, and then the frame rate drops when they switch to the GoPro, and so it looks not like a movie anymore. And then it goes back to looking like Hobbit, and then it goes back to the GoPro. I don't know, Matt. Did you ever even bother watching these? I know you didn't see them in the theater, but
I didn't see them in the theater only because my buddy, who we watched the first 3 movies in theaters and laughed at the joke that it was. And I tried desperately to find him. He was an old roommate of mine, and I couldn't find him anywhere. And I went through the only contact that I had. He didn't make many friends. This guy was, I was one of his few friends in the world, because no one was friends with him. And I realized that pretty quick. And the only other person who was friends with him told me, he went out to Beaumont, Texas. That's the last I've heard of him. I was like, dang it. And I've tried everywhere to get a hold. I even had the missus check Facebook for him, but of course he wasn't going to do Facebook. But if I could have met back up with him, we would have watched them in theaters. But since I couldn't find him, I waited till DVD rental and wasted $3 Redbox dollars, or however many it was, for the Hobbit movies, because they were even worse. But at that point, I already knew they were going to be bad.
well, they aren't even movies. I'm just gonna put that out there. They are awful.
Yeah.
Um,
I have a small hope for the Amazon series, a small ember.
if Peter Jackson's linked to it,
He's not. But the thing is, they're going to be focusing on the second age, which is an interesting age. I mean, if you can't, the first age being the least interesting, but the second age, it has a lot of good stories you could tell, and be a lot of it'd be good, it'd be fun, but you could still explore the early days of the third age and have a really exciting story, I think. But they don't, because the second age has no rings, and I think rings are the thing, man. They're the thing. But I just finished Unfinished Tales, and absolutely loved. It was much better than I remembered, and I can highly recommend that. If that predates the history of Middle Earth.
I'm just wondering how they even managed to get the rights to do like a story of the Second Age from the Tolkien estate, because that's something they've kind of held on tightly to.
You have to drop $1 billion.
It's called Christopher Tolkien's Dead.
No,
well, they got the rights to do this before he died.
The deal was made with Christopher Tolkien and family. It was before he passed away, but it was $1 billion, was it not? 1.2.
I didn't hear of the amount.
And the family has creative control. I mean, there's a lot of concessions they had to make, but the thing is, though, it's going to roll. So I'm hopeful. But I can't hold my breath on it. The second age is fun. If you want to read about the second age, actually, the 3 newest Christopher Tolkien books are basically just a condensed version of the second age, and so you can read those. My dad bought that collection just recently. I've read through it. I didn't need it anymore, and holy cow, I didn't even realize I had super chats on. Okay. Thank you, Ryan.
What's that? Is that where people can send you money?
Yes. Forgot that I left that on. Ryan, you're so nice. You're so kind. I'm sorry you can't make it anyway, brother. Ryan still has a channel, folks. If you want to check it out before Naughty Dog takes him out. Actually, they haven't taken him out yet. So, the fun thing is that I keep waiting that for them to get him, because he keeps poking the bear, and I absolutely love that. He's not afraid of anything, and so yeah, definitely throw him some, because I mean he actually talked about he broke the Matt Martin story. I wasn't really looking for it, but he broke that, and you've brought up some interesting topics of discussion that I'd like to address probably in some mat chats later on. But yeah, check out Arc. He just crossed the 10,000 subscriber list, so he is, he'll pretty soon double my numbers. If he hasn't already, he's getting close, and good for him. Good for him. No one deserves it more. And hopefully he'll give me some exclusive EU content to put on the expandeduniverse.com, which I would love to see. See, Amelia was going to be a weekly contributor, but she said, "Screw that."
Nah, life happens. I can probably finish that article this week, since now that I'm like moved and settled and life is getting back to normal.
I don't know if Spencer will watch this far into the live stream, but I just will say that, Spencer, you're still a slacker. I don't care what you just sent me today.
I was going to explain this awful to you all. It's one of the worst things I've seen, and that, I say this a lot to Matt when I watch something, and I'm like, oh, that was one of the worst things I've ever seen. But this may stay forever as the worst scene I've ever seen in something called a movie. So, in the director's cut of Desolation of Smaug, when Gandalf goes into whatever castle Sauron is hanging out in with all the CG orcs, in the director's cut, he runs into, there's this like short dude that starts wrestling with Gandalf, and it's like watching a WWE match going on. They're just wrestling around. Turns out it's Thorin's dad, who's been a slave of the orcs since the Mines of Moria battle that was in the first film for no reason other than that film was boring. So they had to put some Lord of the Rings looking scene in there. Well, he and Gandalf are palling around. They're being chased by orcs, and they get to the bridge scene where Gandalf fights Sauron, and it turns into that the eye agony scene where you're looking at the eye of Sauron and it hurts your own eyes. But Thorin's dad's like, "Tell Thorin I love him," and he gets pulled away, and he has the Wilhelm scream. They couldn't actually get the actor to record a scream. They had to use the stereotypical Wilhelm scream as he's sucked into the eye of Sauron and eviscerated. It's the worst thing I've ever seen.
Jeremy, you know what my favorite thing about that trilogy was? The fact that they kept trying to beg Viggo Mortensen to come reprise his role as Aragorn, and he was like, "No, Aragorn was canonically 10 years old when this book took place. It would make no sense for me to come back and reprise my role as Aragorn." Like, no matter how much money they offered him, he kept saying no.
They literally have a line that Legolas is going to go find Strider at the end of the Battle of 5 pages.
Yeah, that was the best they could put in there to try and, say he exists in this timeline, but they couldn't get Viggo Mortensen to come back and, play his role. He was like, "No, Aragorn was 10 years old. I am not reprising my role."
If they could have gotten John Rhys Davies to come back, because he'll literally do anything. He's been in like Anaconda 3 and the Shannara Chronicles when he played an elf, which literally, when I think elves, I think John Rhys Davies with a beard.
Wow.
One of the worst MTV shows I've ever seen in my life. Don't watch the Shannara Chronicles. Terry Brooks was very polite and saying when they destroyed his second book, saying, "Oh, it's not that bad." I'm like, sure, dude.
Oh my goodness. Amelia, did I ask you this? What are you reading right now?
I'm still on the Trials of Apollo. It's been a slow process.
That's okay, because Matthew from the Geek Site hasn't read a darn thing in the past 4 months, so.
Yeah.
No, he's probably starting his reread of Rogue Planet.
You could be right.
That's the only book he reads besides Crystal Star. Those are his go-to.
On the other hand, our friend Evan, aka Holocron Keeper Evan, never reads any of the books. He's like, "I have that book." It's like, "But have you read it?" And the answer is always not yet.
Evan.
Are you looking at that interesting conversation going down?
You know what? I haven't. I'm just now seeing it.
I don't
Jeremy,
know.
check out the comment section.
What am I directly being attacked right now? I don't.
No.
No, but it's quite fascinating. Oh gosh.
Are we're gonna have to ban someone?
No.
Oh, that's good. That's good luck. I love that.
Well then, it's interesting.
Alrighty.
Anyway, no, well, nothing.
I can change the subject if you want.
No, it's fine. But to be honest, I think that's it for me. Because I do have to go, and this has been an hour.
Oh my gosh, why?
Oh, wow.
Last about?
It's so much fun. It's so much fun. This is why we do this. But to be honest, guys, EU fan, that's what should matter most. That's what should matter most. That's why we do more civilized age, because I don't really care what other people's thoughts, likes, dislikes are. We all have our disagreements. I mean, even I'm sure Amelia and Jeremy and I share something that's not in common, but at the same time, I think I've said this before, that I can sit down with probably just about anyone if they're an EU fan. It doesn't matter what else they agree or disagree with, what they believe in, what their favorite foods are, who their favorite sports team is.
I'm a vegetarian.
See, something like that.
I do that out of necessity because I don't feel like buying meat. Literally a lazy thing right now.
But see, that's the thing, and it doesn't really.
Matt didn't care because the time we hung out, I got him cheese pizza, and he's like, "This meeting halfway."
It's meeting halfway. It was okay. Yeah. It was okay. I still ate meat in front of her. But the thing is, that's really all that matters there to me, is that if you're an EU fan, it doesn't matter, because that's the topic we're talking about. You know, do you have to love board games too? Nope. But it really helps, Amelia, that you like board games.
Yeah. I did I tell you about, I finally got the Firefly game from I got it from, what's it called, eBay.
The thing is with that, for my birthday, I'm hoping to have 2 games played. A lot of people over, and Twilight Imperium is one, and the second one is the Firefly game. But I want the big map, and I want all of us playing out there. Like,
I was supposed to get an expansion from eBay, and the seller didn't send the expansion, so I never actually contacted them about that, and it's probably too late now. But oh well, I got it for like $35.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's really good.
Yeah, so I got I have all the expansions, and I did bring them out this weekend because I was going to go see my nephews, and my sister-in-law told me that she said, "Matt, there's probably going to be a lot of boys here, so if you want to," because I was like, "Oh, they're bringing their friends are coming over." I said, "Sure." And so I thought, well, what's a big game we can play? And I was thinking, oh, holy cow, can I get a 9-player? Will I get it? Is this the day I get a 9-player Firefly game? Because if ever I play that game with 9 players, look out. That's gonna be
Do the expansions allow for more than 4 players?
Mm-hmm. You can play with 9 players. Why would you need that? I don't know, but the expansions, Kalidas and Blue Sun, expand the board on both sides.
Nice.
And then on top of pick up and deliver, you can also be a bounty hunter or a pirate.
Nice.
And rob. You get points for robbing other ships. You get points for collecting bounties.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the world just opens up, and it is just amazing. And we've played the expansion before, but it's called the whole damn verse, I think. The big map and everything. I've never gotten to play with that ever. Nice. I've only played with one expansion or the other, or none.
Mm-hmm. When is your birthday?
It's the end of the month. And so what I want to do is just bring the same guy. If I'm going to have an 8-player Twilight Imperium, then I'll just switch them over to Firefly, and it's not 9 players, but it's pretty close. And who knows? Maybe a friend comes over. I don't know, but I just think that would just be awesome to play those 2 big games. Of course, that would just that would end the day, because those are the only 2 games. Twilight Imperium, you're looking at, for us, you're looking at a 4 to hold on, let me make sure if I say that right. Yeah, 4 to 5 hours. It's not going to take. You think, man, Matt,
that's a short Twilight Imperium game. That's
say
like
what?
That's like an average 6-hour game, right?
Well, it was when you have 2 dodos fighting each other. It didn't. Ours game didn't last that long, because you took a swipe at Dylan, then Dylan took a swipe at you. Then y'all had this civil war going, and you just let me take over the board.
Matt, I was in the middle of assimilating every planet in my way.
Yeah, but you were going Dylan's way. You weren't touching me. And I was like, hey, I said, guys, it's always good to, here's the objectives for this round. I was trying to be fair, but they had this beef.
Well, because Dylan kept winning everything.
Hold on. Did Dylan start? Dylan did win a few games. He did.
No, I started.
Okay, I thought so. And then Dylan just retaliated. And then y'all had this big war, and I stayed quiet, and I won. I mean, that was one of the quickest games, I think, because I started racking up points. And I was like, okay, guys, here's the objective for this round. This is what you want to do. This is how you do it. They're like, okay. And then he and Dylan starts having a slap fight for the entire round. And then I win the points again. I'm like, okay, guys, focus. I'll be honest, the tricky thing about that game is you do lose focus. You are so involved in building your world, building your civilization, you forget about the goals. I can't tell you how many times people play that game and go, oh, because they forgot about the goal. And they were so busy focused on building, and you're so focused on opponents too. You've got to stay one-minded. But at the same time, if all you're doing is going for the points, you will die. You can get eliminated. Because
so Matt, before we call this a night, I just have to ask, do you think having to put up with both Jeremy and Dylan simultaneously prepared you for being the father of twins?
Oh no, they're easy. Jeremy sleeps all the time.
Yeah, I'm usually drunk and
that did not prepare me.
Yeah, I'm surprised neither of the girls have woken up during this.
If Jeremy woke me up at 2 and then again at 3 and then again at 4, crying until I fed him a bottle of milk, then maybe it would have prepared me. Dylan asked for milk, but he didn't wake me up. He was just politely saying before we went to bed, can I warm him some milk? Okay, I'm going to end it there. Hey, guys, thanks a lot for coming on. Appreciate it, Amelia. Check out Jeremy at Stupid Chainsaw Productions. And by the way, if you haven't already, donate to Twin Sons Foundation. This is a great time. Right now, everything, the drives, the donations are put on.
I think we're like, let me just check it and see like how far away we are from our goal, because I know we're like mostly funded.
Okay. Yeah, sure. And go ahead if you can throw a few bucks there. Throw a few bucks for them. It is tax deductible because they are
we're like 260 away from being fully funded.
There you go. So if you can throw $5, $10, $20, or $260 their way, I'd appreciate it. Do a good deed. Do a good deed. Do something well. I think this weekend I'm donating some masks in the community, which will be really nice because we've kind of fulfilled that need. And then I was like, oh man, I want to get on that. So this may be the last time we get to donate masks to someone, because everyone's pretty much masked up at this point. But we're getting to do it, and that's gonna be fun for me. And but you should do stuff like that.
I mean, I donated a whole box of Son of Mask on DVD, but I got banned.
Awesome. Okay. Well,
I don't think this is exactly the same thing, but it's the thought that counts, Jeremy.
Right. Well, and remember, if they do hit their goal before the end of the month, we're going to dress Dylan up as an Ewok. He hadn't agreed to that yet, but it will happen. So join me next time as I talk about Highlander and Survivor, because I'm an old fogey and I still love Survivor and I think it's awesome. I just saw the finale. I'm so happy.
I'm happy that you're happy.
And there's that yawn that says, Amelia's like, we should